This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Hi, my name is Igor Kheifets, and this is the List Building Lifestyle, the only podcast which delivers cutting-edge conversion strategies from the online trenches straight to your earbuds. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. I also invite you to grab a free copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. And now, once again, it's time to claim your list building lifestyle.
You are listening to List Building Lifestyle. Aren't you lucky? We're happy to have you here, and when I say we, I really mean Mr. Igor Kheifets, the chief list builder himself. What is up, my man?
What's up, Jonathan? What's up, list builders?
Hey, man, I know that you're eager to jump into this, but I feel like it's time to read another review. So I'm going to jump into that before I set you loose on the list builders. So we got this 5-star review, and here's what they write. Let's see. He just calls himself List Building from the UK. All right, cool. So Mr. List Building says, once again, Igor delivers some of the best information that I'll use in my business day in and day out. As well as that, if you're in need of a weekly motivational boost, this is for you. Keep them coming, Igor.
All right. Well, look at me, rivaling Tony Robbins.
Get it?
Yeah. You know, Jonathan, it's funny. I remember looking just when I was moving from Tel Aviv back to this little hick town where I live in right now, because of all the traffic jams and humidity, it's just, you know, we couldn't stand it. I remember packing up this box where I found one of my success diaries where I used to write down my little wins and my affirmations and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember there was one page where I wrote down like the perfect outcome, what I wanted to be in 5 years. And I actually wrote down that I wanted to be like Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy, motivating and inspiring people to become successful. I really dug that. Now, I realize, of course, that it's not exactly the same thing because we're more geared towards marketing and conversions. And yeah, but it does intertwine a little bit. And it's really cool to realize that, you know, that my efforts are being recognized by the list builders, and that that's the kind of impact, that's the kind of secondary impact that our work has on their lives.
No kidding, man. You had the intention and you made it happen. So props to you.
Yeah, law of attraction. Maybe the secret works.
Uh-oh. So what do you have in store for us today, Igor?
Well, Jonathan, you know me, I'm not much for a religious guy, right? But today I want to deliver some success secrets from the Bible.
Okay.
And there's one particular line that I picked up. I picked it up from a book, which picked it up from the Bible, which says, harvest is plenty, but workers are few. Now, I might be misquoting the Bible, so if I am, I do apologize, but that's pretty much what it says. Harvest is plenty, but workers are few. Of course, the translation into English is, there's a ton of opportunity out there, however, very few people are willing to do anything to capitalize on those opportunities by working hard. Now, think how profound that is, coming from a book that was written thousands of years ago.
No kidding.
I'll just, letting this sink in for a little bit. Because to think that you would find success lessons in the Bible, for me, is a bit weird. Because to be honest with you, I never shared this with anybody, and this is probably going to alienate some religious, list builders that are listening to the show right now. But that's the truth, honest to God. In my application for coaching, when I used to do the intensive coaching, I used to ask my applicants, what are the 3 books you're reading right now? And if one of those books was the Bible, I would never close. I don't know why. I don't know what is it, but it's like a Murphy's Law. Whenever someone mentioned the Bible, I'm not kidding, man. I'm honestly, this is true. Whenever someone would mention they're reading the Bible in their application, I would never close. Now, I discovered, ironically, that the people who put their faith in the Bible, in the writings of the Bible, and in God, oftentimes had very little belief in their own ability to follow through, which prevented them from investing in themselves and their own success.
Igor, this is such a weird sidetrack, but I have to share it with you because, our son's coming home soon and we're looking at possibly having him in like a school 2 days a week so I can make sure and get my work done. And we went, and I am a man of faith. I'm involved in my church and stuff like that. I went yesterday and I was shaking hands and kissing babies and all that. I call myself the mayor, the budding mayor of the church. But we went to this more of a faith-based school, and we're walking around on the tour, and this lady keeps telling us, well, if God wants your son to be in this school, it'll happen. Well, if God wants that, it'll happen. And my wife and I left there and we're like, what the hell is wrong with this lady? No matter what God wants, we got to get shit done. All right. And so we're not waiting for anybody else to get things done. We got to do it ourselves. And then we thank God that we got it done.
Well, she gets it. She gets it. She's got the whole success thing figured out. That's exactly it. Like, you have faith in God, you have faith in yourself, you have faith in higher power, you have faith in just, getting the good breaks. But you got to do something. Like, there's this old ancient joke about a guy whose neighbor wins the lottery. And so he sees his neighbor arrive one day to his house in a brand new Ferrari. And all of a sudden he sees the house getting like an extreme makeover and everything. And he's like pissed. He gets back into the house, shuts the door. He's like, and he shouts at the ceiling. He's like, God, why do I never win the lottery? I pray every day, and I go to church, and I do this, and I'm a good Christian, and all of a sudden, God answers. He says, dude, buy a lottery ticket.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's what I see, and that's a very, very good sidetrack. Really, really, really shows how people speak their beliefs, which is profound. I only kind of realized that about a year ago, that people actually mean what they say. Although a lot of people try to put up a facade, their words do kind of speak about what they feel and think. And so this lady, by putting all this faith in God, she gets rid of this nasty, often uncomfortable personal responsibility, right? Because she can always say, well, it didn't happen for me. Perhaps God has a different plan. Or whatever, like, oh, a disaster happened? Well, that's God working in mysterious ways. Now, that's actually not the right way to think about it, because while you do hope that God is going to help you, why not be as aggressive as you can possibly be about achieving your goal? Because if someone puts a gun to your head, will you, at least try to do something to save your life? Like, will you just stand there and just pray that, the gun won't fire? I'm assuming the answer is like 50-50 probably with our audience. It's like some of them will be just praying, and the others will be like probably trying to grab the gun and then point it back at the burglar or whatever. But yeah, that wasn't a great analogy, was it?
It's all good, brother.
Here's my point. My point is, while you do thank God for the opportunities that come up in your life, you have to hustle and take advantage of these opportunities. Because if you study successful folks, if you read their biographies, no matter whether they trust in God or not, they're hustlers. I mean, even, do you ever listen to Joel Osteen?
No, who's that? That's somebody new to me.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Dude, it's like one of the biggest preachers ever. So anyway, Joel Osteen, I'm sorry, I thought you knew who that is. I think everybody in America knows who that is.
I missed out, I guess.
Yeah, well, just go to joelaustin.com and you'll see how he's got these sermons happening every week, and he packs stadiums,
wow.
like 20, 40,000 people at a time. And so, he's the epitome of what you're supposed to be, in my opinion, as a man of faith or a woman of faith. Like, he believes, yet he is such an aggressive action taker that opportunities seem to fall into his lap, And if you struggle to understand right now what I'm talking about, because I might not be explaining this right, go ahead and listen to Joel Osteen. Just go to joelaustin.com and just listen to the inspirational messages, and you'll get the point. He really just gives lots and lots of different examples and stories on how you're supposed to think when you believe in God. Because most people, when they get struck with an illness, for example, they just fold. And they say, oh, that's it, my life's over. But maybe that's a challenge that God, put in your life for you to strengthen your muscles to get ready for an opportunity that comes down the road. Who knows? You never know if there's going to be a drug that was invented that's going to heal you, whatever. But that's how people are. They kind of lose faith very, very quickly. And the other thing I wanted to talk about with regards to the sidetrack that we've made with this lady is that people do tend to transfer the responsibility outside of self, which I think is sinful. It is very, very common, and I think is very, very sinful, because you can't possibly succeed in life or business or relationships or anything if every single time there's an external entity, whether like physical or spiritual, that is to blame why things happen in your life the way they did.
That's it, man. People are always trying to, well, I mean, successful people don't do it, but the average person, I'm trying to figure out, I'm racking my brain right now, thinking about this experiment a guy did where they had an actor sitting in a chair and then a teacher, or the teacher was a volunteer, and they would come in and say, hey, you got to get this student to remember these words. It's a word association thing, and if they don't remember them, we're going to shock them, right? And so they put the teacher, who is not in on the gag, in another room, and they have a guy with a lab coat standing over him. And so the teacher says the first word, like it'd be green and apple, and the student on the other side in the shock chair needs to remember that. So teacher says green, student says apple, blue New York or whatever. So after a couple, the guy starts missing them, and each time the student misses them, they shock that person. And the shocks get increasingly worse. And what happens is, with the man with the lab coat telling him to keep going, most people will keep shocking that student, even when that student is crying out, and the student was an actor, but crying out for mercy. They keep shocking. Why? Because there's a guy with a lab coat telling him to do it, and they're deferring the authority. They're saying, well, I'm not responsible for this. The guy in the lab coat told me to do it, so I'm going to do it. And that's really the way people think. They get rid of their responsibility and let it be someone else, whether it's the guy in the lab coat or whether it's God's will.
Yeah, and more importantly, like they kept going even when they felt really bad about it.
Yes.
Right?
You know which study I'm talking about. I can't remember the name.
It's one of the most famous experiments, and that was the first time when I realized how tremendously powerful it is to build your authority in the marketplace. Because when you commit an authority just like that lab coat person, and you just tell people to do something, they go do it, that is in a very advantageous position to be in. And circling back to their whole responsibility thing, you're right. Like, even when they really felt bad and horrible and disgusted, but pressing those buttons to shock that person, even though the person wasn't really shocked, like you said, he's just an actor, they kept going and going and going and going because the authority said that's what they're supposed to be doing. There's not a study they've done where they've done, I think it was a math test or something, and they had two groups. One group, the person would do the math test on their own, and the other group, the person would do the math test, but next to them, they've had a math expert. And so they were allowed to ask the math expert 3 questions. Now, surprisingly, the people who had the math expert next to them and could ask him questions did worse on the exam. So the people who were doing it on their own did better. And the study showed that the moment they set an expert next to the person, an expert at the topic of that particular experiment, right? So I don't remember if it's math or English or whatever, but some part of the brain just allowed itself to shut down. The part that was responsible for, I think, making decisions, right? And Jonathan, as somebody who has employees, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about here, where employees tend to not make decisions on their own. Even though they know what the right decision is, they still come to you and ask, like, what should I do? And so that is, that's a big thing. That's a big thing for the human being. That's a big thing in the brain, which we have to stay aware of. And it explains in a big way where a lot of people prefer to kind of transfer the responsibility onto other people's shoulders.
Igor, real quick, I looked it up. It's called the Milgram experiment, and I think we've talked about it on the show before. Milgram, Milgram. And the book that I was just reading where I brought this up from was A Sociopath Next Door, and they also talk about soldiers in war. The same thing, when their chief or whoever is right there telling them to fire, they're willing to fire, but if there's no authority there, their fire rates go down by 30%.
No wonder, because as far as I know, I'm not sure how it is in the American army, but Israeli army, if you fire the gun without having had someone tell you to do so, just basically based on your own judgment, even if the other person that you shoot like threw a rock at you or ran at you with a knife or something. Like the army actually sues the soldier. Like they put him in prison often.
Wow.
So naturally everyone's like very reluctant to fire the gun. However, there's still plenty of tendencies of that happening. But again, like we're talking about the decision-making process. And yeah, if there's an authority, most people will not make a decision on their own. And in coaching, we feel that very, very, very bad. Like right now, the work I do with the VIP club, oftentimes it's like things as simple as choosing a subject line can come down to the person, my student mailing me and saying, hey, I came up with a subject line. Is it good? And let's just say it takes me 2 days to respond, right? So they won't mail. They won't mail until I respond, which is bad.
Fire! That's awesome, man. I know I took us on a sidetrack, but I was just thinking about that, so didn't mean to derail you.
Yeah, so let's circle back to the whole harvest is plenty, but workers are few. Today, with my experience and my knowledge, and I'm sure your experience has been very similar, Jonathan, because you also have rich experience in real estate and other areas. Like today, I can roam the internet spotting money-making opportunities, like opportunities that I can objectively take advantage of. Right, I can come in and know exactly what I'm supposed to do to make money. However, obviously, I limit the amount of opportunities I capitalize on dramatically because I don't have enough hours in the day to do so. However, there are a ton of people out there who live in a very, very dark world. They live in a world absent of opportunities. They live in a world absent of ability to succeed. If they step into the internet marketing space, all they see is competition. They don't realize that if there is a ton of competition, that there's a ton of money to be made, right? They don't see the things that, the successful people see. And as a result, of course, they don't take advantage. They don't work to get it because there is no belief that they can get it in the first place. So let this episode be the reminder to you list builders to open your eyes and realize that harvest is plenty, but workers are few. And if you choose to be the few who work, you will change your life dramatically over the course of the following months.
Boom. Good advice, man. What do you have coming up for us next time, Igor?
Next time, I got the rock and roll secrets of Perry Marshall's email guy. Now, I never heard of this guy before, but when I found out that Perry Marshall had his own email department, if you will, I immediately sought out the guy who's the head of that department, right? Because if Perry Marshall believes someone is good enough and skilled enough to write his emails, man, that's it, right? I mean, he's good. I don't need any more proof than that. So his name is John Fancher, and next episode, I'm grilling him about the email secrets that he knows that most people don't. One of which actually has to do a lot with why it pays to email every single day, and why if you choose to deliberately decrease the frequency of your emails, you will be not only leaving a ton of money on the table, but you will actually end up getting more unsubscribes and more spam complaints than if you were to mail every day.
How about that? A little bit contrarian to what everybody else thinks. Good stuff. So looking forward to that episode. And thank you, list builders, for tuning in. Thank you, Igor, for sharing your insights. And we'll be back in your earbuds next time.
Thank you for listening to The List Building Lifestyle. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes or Google Play to never miss an episode. Because who knows, just one conversion tactic we share on the show might double your list and double your business. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. And don't forget to claim your complimentary copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. This is Igor Kheifets, and until next time we talk, have a good one.
This is the podcastfactory.com.